Hey everyone. So I'm Krishna. Welcome to the 404 podcast. Um, hello, 1, 2, 3. Yep, it's working. Am I live on YouTube? Let me just check it out once. Yep, I am. Let's
Gotta
go.
make sure everything's working out.
Yep. So welcome to the 404 podcast. I'm your host Krishna. Excited as always, and this time I have Richard with me, who is going to share his journey in tech and as you may already know by the title, Tech Trials and Triumphs. So over to you, Richard. Please introduce yourself.
Yeah, so I'm Richard, but you can call me Rich. I am a developer for about 2+ years, almost 3 years now. Wow, time flies by so fast. And I transitioned into tech from like customer service relatively around that field. And I'm like, when I was in those types of jobs, I was feeling very unfulfilled. And I'm like, I kind of want to try something that challenges myself and where I can see myself grow as a person and as someone in that career field. And I just wasn't really getting that from what the jobs I was working at. And COVID came around and I was able to have the time to look at myself and do a bit of a retrospective. And I'm like, what do I want to do for the rest of my life? And I'm like, well, I've always been interested in computers. I want to give that a try and like, let's see how that works out. Worst case scenario, I go back to customer service, right? And so I, for some reason, I thought the first thing to do was to get a computer science degree. So I looked online for a university, and the curriculum was 28 grand. And I'm like, now thinking back, looking back at it, I'm just like, why did I pay for that? I did get a lot of it refunded, thankfully, but I'm like, I can learn all of this on YouTube. I'm just gonna do that. So went on the self-taught journey, and I went on the classic tutorial hell journey, as a lot of my fellow developers who start their journey typically encounter. And it was definitely overwhelming because there's so many free resources online now. You've got your YouTube videos, you've got your tutorials, you've got your boot camps, you've got your documentation, the list goes on. And I'm like, I don't know what stack I want to go into. I don't know what any of this is, and like yada yada yada. And then I came across 100 devs on Reddit. I'm like, oh, why don't I give this a try? Everyone keeps saying this is a great place to be. There's a lot of great community. It's a program specifically meant to get a job. It sounded a little good, too good to be true. Honestly, when I was looking at what people were saying, I'm like, seems like a scam. Because, like, if it's too good to be true, it's usually a scam, right, online. And so I'm like, well, they're not really asking for a lot of information. So I'm like, why not? Let's just give it a shot. So I joined 100 devs and I immediately fell in love with everything about the aspects of coding, just being a developer and being like, oh my goodness, I love working on code. I love learning it. I love building it. I love deconstructing it. I love it experimenting with it, yada, yada, yada. So fell in love and I stuck with it until I graduated 100 devs. And I'm like, well, I have all the core aspects of what's needed to be a developer. And now I'm more better equipped to self self teach myself tech stacks what I'm interested in and just go from there. And that's kind of what I did. I started teaching myself React, and I was going to volunteer programs like Linguistics Justice League and To Be the Light. And I was volunteering, putting myself out there, trying to give myself some work experience as a developer. And I think it was around that time where I found Gridiron Survivor with Shashi. Because Shashi was like, oh, hey, I have this friend. His name is Rudy. He wants to automate this Football Survivor because he's been doing it manually for so long. But who wants to track all that manually, right? Because he had to, for context, he had to reach out to every single person who was participating manually. Like he had to call them and be like, "Hey, bro, you need to put in your pick," and he had to do that for every single person. I'm like, I don't know how you did that by yourself. So Shashi's like, yeah, I could technically do it, right, by myself because I've got the experience and everything. But instead of that, I know you guys are all looking for jobs. Would you be open to forming a group, and then I would simulate an environment as close as possible to something close to what you would experience in a workplace? I'm like, absolutely, sign me up. So I joined, and I learned a lot of things. I learned so many things I probably would never learn on my own, and like unit testing or doing retrospectives or doing one-on-ones or knowing the differences between like how to communicate just like in a conversational way, but and then also just conversating with people through text asynchronously, right? So it was around I think like 4 or 5 months into the program. Me and Shashi were doing a one-on-one, and he's like, "Richard, you said something really interesting. You said that you're really interested in technical writing. I think we should pivot you over to it." I'm like, "All right, let's give it a shot." So I did some research into technical writing. I'm like, okay, this seems intriguing, right? And as an English major, I'm like, hey, I get to actually use my degree. I paid all this money for it, and now it's actually useful, right? So I did some research, and then I think Appright was doing their NIT program around that time, and I'm like, oh my goodness, hey, Vincent, he's the technical writer at Appright. At that time, he was the technical writer. So I'm like, let me reach out to him, right? So I was like, hey, Vincent, let's talk about technical documentation, right? Because I'm interested in it. I want to learn more. So I did a chat with him, and then one thing led to another, and he was like, "Oh, yeah, I think you would be great to join Appright." And then I'm like, "Oh, yeah, absolutely. Let me know if there's any positions available." And then I think 2 weeks in later, I saw a position open. I'm like, "Let me slide in those DMs." So I ended up doing that, and I got the internship at Appright. And 3 months afterwards, I learned a lot of different things that as both a technical writer and also as a developer, what I need to work on and what I already established what I knew. And it was good to see what I still needed to work on, but it was also good to see what like the fruits of my labors up to that point. And so after Appright, I rejoined that Great Iron Survivor because I'm like, gotta go back on the grind, the job hunt, the lovely job hunt. And now I'm kind of just working on trying to, take everything I've learned up to this point and implement it into my own personal project, but also just my journey in general. So yeah, that's my very long journey condensed into somewhat condensed. I need to work on condensing it a little more.
Awesome, Richard. Awesome. I'd like to ask that when you like transition from like a customer service career to
Mhm.
a career in tech, like didn't you feel like overwhelmed, and did you like ever feel that you should give up, or like this is very difficult and not as easy as you thought, or even, or like it didn't go as you planned sometime? Did you ever fall into that situation?
A lot. I can't even count the amount of times I've felt that kind of emotion. Because it can be tough when you're working at home or not working, but you're learning and you're studying and you're trying to break into tech. Because I ended up quitting my job to pursue this full time. And something I learned really fast was I felt this sense of guilt, this sense of overwhelming guilt and burden every single time I saw my mom and dad leave to go to work because it was a constant reminder to myself of what I could be doing instead of what I currently am doing, right? Because I think it's that sense of not having something like a job where you have that income coming in. It's that conscious idea of, oh, I'm doing something that's currently not giving me income and I'm living with my parents, and maybe it's my upbringing and maybe it's the culture that I live in, but I've definitely felt a lot of guilt and burden every time I see my parents go leave for work, and then when they come back from work and they look so exhausted, they look so tired, and it just not breaks my heart, but it kind of makes me feel sad to know that what I'm doing isn't it doesn't translate exactly to what you know what I mean, and so it can be tough for sure. And there have been many times I've considered quitting because it's just the difficulty of working on something that doesn't exactly have results, like immediate results, is definitely not a easy thing to do in terms of just like when you do coding, it's not like, oh, if I do this, I will get a job. It's more of a I will code for a chance to get a job, but there's no guarantee, right? And it's just like it's tough for sure.
That's pretty, inspiring. So, like, is there something that kept you motivated along this journey, like something that forced you to keep pushing amidst of all these, feeling sad or maybe feeling demotivated?
Definitely, it was definitely my love for it. I don't think if I had loved it as much as I did, or I do currently, I would still be doing it. That and then also the support of my community, just the support of my friends, the current friends I have, the friends I had before, and who are there the entire time to stick around with me through the highs and the lows. And I think that support of community is so important during the job hunt and just trying to transition into tech. It's that sense of camaraderie of just being there for each other, supporting each other when you need it, just getting to really talk to someone that truly understands where you're coming from. Because that I think that's also a difficult aspect of it is that they true like my family members know what I'm doing, but they don't truly understand the difficulty that comes with it, right? Because they've never experienced something like this. Like having come from an experience where I was working jobs similar to what they were doing, I understand their lack of understanding because it's so vastly different. It's not the same at all in terms of how the job hunt works from just a regular 9 to 5 blue collar job to being a developer and trying to break into tech. It's just not at all the same. Like, for example, conferences and meetups, that's just not a thing. Like, the sense of community is also just not a thing. Like, every single job I have gone to, it has been very not standoffish, I guess, but more of on the individual level. I guess on a more competitive level as well, and just like everyone just do their own thing, and that's kind of just the end. Like there would be some small talk, but like yeah.
Well, and hey there, Sophia. We're glad that you made it here.
Hi, Sophia.
So, Richard, um, let's come more to the technical side. So,
Hmm.
like what technologies did you plan learning first, and like what like amidst of this huge ocean of technologies and
Mhm.
stacks, why do you choose that technology that you learned first?
So, okay. I genuinely don't remember the first tech stack I tried learning because it's been quite a while, and it also, like, I mean, I kind of just put it in the back burner of my memory now, but I think it was Ruby on Rails. It was some type of free tutorial. It was either Ruby on Rails or it was Java. I don't remember why I chose it. I kind of just chose whatever because I was just looking for free tutorials for coding. I at the time I wasn't aware that boot camps was a thing. I wasn't aware that tutorials were a thing. I just kind of like, okay, I'm just gonna look up whatever language, and I'm like, okay, let's go on Reddit and see what they recommend to learn. And I think someone recommended Java or someone else recommended C Sharp. So I'm like, okay, whatever. I'm just gonna choose this and I'm gonna see how it works. And I failed miserably. I think I got as far as I didn't even get to loops. I think I stopped at like I stopped after variables or after functions, I think. I don't remember anymore. It's been such a long time. But I think I stuck with JavaScript because of the sense of community with 100 devs. It wasn't really the language itself, it was the community. And it was also that sense of direction too. Because what I really love about 100 devs is you're able to be self-dependent. It's highly encouraging in terms of like teaching yourself and learning on your own. And I think that's really important because if you're too self-dependent on on what the curriculum provides, then when you leave, what do you do afterwards, right? And so I think 100 Devs does a really good job of providing resources to put you on the right path. But then the most of the work is on you, right? Most of what you want to do, I mean, you can follow the curriculum to a T, or you can do A, B, C, and D, right? So I think I really like that about 100 Devs.
I see. Being self-taught too, I understand the pain of like being, overwhelmed or like not knowing where to go to learn tech stack first at the beginning. So my question is that, like how did you know about, like how do you know something like 100 devs existed? Did you like have anyone tell you about that, or do you just discover it on the internet?
Oh, just internet. It was Reddit. I think it was the subreddit was called Computer Science. I forget the exact subreddit, but I think someone was talking about how good the program was. I'm like, hmm. I mean, what you're sounding sounds good, but on paper. But I don't know if you're legit, right? Because you could be a scammer. You could be trying to get my information, or be getting trying to get my money. I have no idea. I can't trust you. So it's like I don't know. So I'm like, but after thinking about it, I'm like, well, I mean, it's not really asking for a lot of information. It's just like my email. I'm like, all right, let's just try it. And then I'm like, okay. Oh, hey, Ellie.
Oh, guess who's here? Hey there, Ali. Well, so like, did you have someone on your journey to like tell you about stuff, or like or like you just went with the flow and just learned from the resources available online?
I I just kind of used the resources online, but I also I did something slightly different when I was a part of 100 devs. I did follow the curriculum to a T, but I also kind of worked on my own and did my own stuff like side projects and all that jazz. I don't know if they're on my repositories anymore. I might have just did it like put it in my USB and never uploaded it online. Maybe I will one day, but like they were never really uh portfolio level of projects. They were just like fan sites of things that I just really wanted to play around with, and I'm like, yeah, why not? Like I just want to get my creative juices flowing, and I ended up just pushing out project after project. I'm just like, yeah, I'm probably never gonna finish these.
That's fine. So, like, uh, did you make any mistakes on the way that like you wish you hadn't, or maybe you would like to uh, inform or warn a new aspiring developer of that that something like this may exist? So be like stay careful or be careful from this kind of stuff. Did something like that ever happen to you?
Oh, all the time, Krishna. I've made so many mistakes in my life and just in my journey as a developer. But I've honestly thought about this a lot. Like, I do a lot of retrospective thinking when I'm just chilling or I'm just walking outside. I don't think I would ever undo what I did. I would, if I had the chance to redo it, I would do the exact same mistake. And the reason why I say that is because of those mistakes, I am the person I am now, and I know what not to do moving forward. But if I were to choose one mistake, because I've made quite a few, I would say one is don't get burnt out. And I mean, that's such a general advice, but it's like, I guess to be more specific with it, it's start small and then gradually build yourself up towards a more busy schedule rather than trying to just go straight into it, you know? So, I mean, obviously, this is going to depend on person to person, right? Not everyone's schedule is going to be the same. I have the luxury of living with my parents, and I am also single and childless, so I have a lot of freedom in regards to having a very open and very free schedule in regards to that. And I am hyper aware of that fact that I have a lot more time compared to a lot of people. And on one side, that is, I'm very grateful for it, but on the other side, it can also be very daunting because I have that much time. I constantly think to myself, I could be doing more. And it kind of, it's a domino effect as well as a cascading effect of where like it piles on top of each other of like a spiral, not spiraling of negativity, but more of like a spiral of I could be doing better, I could be doing more, I could be working harder, I could be doing this, I could be doing that, and it just keeps going and going and going. So yeah.
That's definitely some, like good piece of advice. Um, let's come to the technical side once more. Do
Hmm.
you remember the first, like this is a fun question. Like, do you remember one of the first projects that actually make sense that you have made?
But okay, what do you mean by makes sense? Because
No, like we
depends on your
built
definition
like
of that.
no, like that. The like I meant that we don't consider the projects we do like by watching tutorials or stuff, and like we do it by ourselves, and then it achieves something. It is not something like a blank program trying to run a while loop and print the Fibonacci sequence or something like that. Like it
Mm.
does some actual stuff, like you know what I mean.
Okay, do fan sites count? I don't know. I guess like if we're not counting fan sites, because that's those were my very first projects. It's like building things around things I love and I was passionate about. Like, but I knew 100% this would never, ever, ever be shown that I knew Emily would comment on that. Hey, hey, hey! In my defense, I am an overthinker, and that is who I am, and I embrace it. Anyways, what was I gonna say? I knew that those kind of projects would never be shown to a recruiter or interviewer because I'm like, these are really, 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 really niche, and I don't think I can talk about it in the interview. Having said that, my first project, I would say that I consider the first one it was I don't even know what name I gave it, but it was basically this game simulator. I don't want to be a gamer or a game developer. I don't want to go into game development. For some reason though, I decided my first ever project would be a game simulation, and I don't know. I had a lot of fun making it, but then when I finished it, I'm like, how on earth am I going to market this to people who I'm interviewing with? I don't know. Like, what do I say in an interview when it comes to stuff like this? It's like, it's a game? Anyways, yeah, I guess that would be my very first project.
That's pretty great. We can count fan sites here. Like it's something you develop out of like out of your interest, and I consider projects as something what interests you rather than something uh what like which you make to like solve some problem. Like people tend to like include a bunch of projects in their portfolios, and they spend days working on that project. I feel like you shouldn't like waste your time on that, and instead you should just build what interests you, and then you'll have a great project by the end of that when you finish working.
Oh yeah. Okay. In that case, if we're counting fan sites, then I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna say the one. Okay. It was based off an anime character, but in my defense, the design was so cute. I'm like, I have to make a website about the character, and so I ended up making the entire website design around their color design, and I'm pretty happy about it because it's all pink, and I'm like, I love it. It's so colorful and so cute. I'm like, afterwards, I'm like, okay, I'm really proud of how this turned out, but I will never show this to him. But yeah, I'll choose that one then if we're including fan size.
And by the way, hey there, Roxy, and
Hey
Coder
Roxy.
Gamer India is asking what's about your upcoming school exam? Did you study? Oh yes, I did. I did.
Oh, I don't envy you, man, Krishna. I don't miss the days when I had to wake up for class. I don't know if I would be able to do it anymore without like a friend next to me to like keep me awake because I'm like, I am probably gonna fall asleep.
Okay, and so like like how did you like what do you call it, get out of the the tutorial? So like the beginners these days fall into the tutorial hell, about that. Like they keep watching tutorials and then they
Mhm,
never are able to apply that knowledge. So
mhm.
like how did you manage to apply all the knowledge that you gathered from all those tutorials or boot camps that you have been in?
Ooh. I would say it's the fan sites, honestly. That's what helped me push myself forward to more of a actual real project because I think the I don't want to pat myself too much on the back, but I think what I did that I really think, like looking back at it, was smart of me to do was I approached it purely based off of a passion standpoint, and because I genuinely loved the character that I was building the website around, and or I was passionate about the character, either or, and because I was so passionate about it, I was able to push myself forward to finishing the project. And then because of that, my love for the character translated to my love for the project because I'm like, oh, I am having so much fun building this project. I want to do another one. And so that's what I did. I would just build another one right afterwards. And then I'm like, oh my God, I really like this. And then eventually what ended up happening was like, I got to a point where like, I fell in love with the seeing myself improve aspect of it. I'm like, oh, I really love seeing my growth because I was able to see the physical changes between my first project and the project I was currently working on. I'm like, oh wow, I really like seeing this progress. I really like seeing myself grow. I really like seeing myself improve. And that's also the reason why I love things like drawing or working out, because I'm able to physically see that growth and seeing myself improve over time. And so I'm like, okay, you know what? I want to build more. I want to go more into the deeper into the trenches of these programming languages. I want to learn more because that way I can build more complex things and I can work on more interesting projects, you know. And I think it just kind of cascaded from there and it's built snowballed into currently where I am now.
That's pretty awesome. Let's come into the recent times. Like, how do you get into the communities, or like how do you connect with people on Twitter, and then like how do you like get in the tech community? That's what I'm asking about.
Just be yourself, honestly. Maybe that advice doesn't work for everyone, but for me, that's just how I do it. I go through the Twitter feeds or the Blue Sky feeds or the LinkedIn feeds. I don't go on LinkedIn as much, but I should be doing LinkedIn a lot more often. But I just try to approach the posts as if I were talking to them in person. I'm like, oh, okay. I kind of want to contribute to this conversation because I'm interested in the conversation genuinely. Or if I'm unable to contribute, I just like it or I just repost it, right? And I think over time, like at first, I was pretty intimidated to do it. I'll be honest, because I'm like, oh my god, I what if I say something wrong? What if I say something that pisses them off? What if I say something that annoys them? What if I say something that makes me look weird? Da, 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 da. And I would just like constantly overthink about replying to a single Twitter post. I'm like now it's like not nothing. I'm like, oh, Roxy posted something on Twitter. I'm gonna immediately respond to it. Or oh, Krishna posted something. I'll respond to it. You know. So it's interesting how things change over time. I think it's just because you get used to it. It's it can be very intimidating in the beginning for sure, but if you do it more often, the more often you do it, the more not desensitized, but the more you get used to it, you know. And then you build up a community from there, and then you're like, hey, want to do a coffee chat? We interact a lot online through replies and comments or streams, and then yeah.
Also, what's your take on like a coffee chat, since you mentioned it, like being a developer, you know?
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that because I think I never really realized it because I guess I didn't really think about that much. But coffee chats isn't really a thing outside of the developer community, and I have to always tell my parents or my family I'm in a meeting. I never tell them it's a coffee chat. I don't know why. I guess I just like I'm like I don't know if I want to explain it to you or if I'm just too lazy. I have no idea. But anyways, like that aside, I think coffee chats are a great way to help people kind of get used to talking to people because I do genuinely believe that being a part of the developer community or being trying to get into tech or trying to become a developer, one thing that I have learned is having those communication skills both verbally and just like through text based. And I think coffee chats is a great entry point into introducing yourself to people and getting used to talking to people. Because I know a lot of people are like, oh, you should go to a conference or you should go to a meetup. I'm like, I also recommend going to those, but I know that there are people in the community that are on the more shy side, right? Or on the more social anxiety side, or they just don't, they're intimidated to reach out to people, you know, or they don't want to, they're, it seems scary to kind of talk to people and be like, especially when you're in a group and you're in a room and there's like tons of people in one room, you're like, oh my god, who do I talk to? Where do I go? It's like it's scary. And so I think coffee chats is a great way to kind of ease your way into those kind of situations. And that way, when you do go to a meetup or you do go to a conference, it's a lot easier for you to, or from what I found, it's a lot easier to approach people and be like, hey, I'm Richard. How are you? What's your name? Is this your first time at this conference? You know, blah, 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 blah.
Okay, I see. You know, um, what is? Wait a second. What? Oh shit! My Chrome went not responding for a moment. I don't know why. Yep, it's back. It scared me. What happened? Yeah. So, like your take on coffee chats was pretty great. Uh,
Mm.
so like you know, how are like? Do you have any plans that? How are you going to like continue in the future, like learning something or maybe doing something? Like you have some goals, right? So maybe you could share it here.
I would say the first thing is just doing it because I'm the type of person that found this out pretty fast, and I'm glad I found this out fast. Is I learn best when I put my hands on something, right? Like everyone has their own learning styles. Like some people are more preferable on the visual side, or some people are more on the audio side. But I do generally feel like with coding specifically, you do need to get your hands on the keyboard at some point or another. Like I don't know how you would be able to know how something works without experimenting around with a certain syntax and seeing what breaks and what doesn't break in certain specific situations. And I definitely want to keep doing that in my learning journey. And that's why I started doing Magical Tech Cafe and 100 Days with Code to keep myself accountable and to also give myself a platform where I have the freedom to choose and pick and choose what I want to learn, right? And honestly, I was going to build it with Laravel and PHP because I was kind of interested in learning a new language and stack. But uh, after thinking about it for a while, I'm like, I kind of want to stick with what I know, only because I wanted to implement testing into my new project because I've never implemented testing into any of my other projects before. And now I've been exposed to it. Now I want to kind of introduce it to a project of mine. And I'm like, yeah, I probably don't want to do testing with a completely new language I just learned. So maybe the next one.
Okay, that's pretty great. And here Roxy is like daring us to make a random noise.
What random noise would I make? I don't even know. Cacao. That's random enough. I don't know.
What do you mean make a random noise?
It could be random, but I don't know. Like any noise that is considered random. Random is in itself a very vague terminology. Like you could consider this conversation random, or you could consider me drinking a water bottle random. I don't know. I don't know.
Oh, no, that's funny. Um, so let's come to to your journey. Like, have you
Hmm.
ever struggled with what do you call it? Imposter syndrome? How do you handle it?
Oh, brother. I think everyone has imposter syndrome, especially in developer journeys. But for me, I think I'm lucky in that sense because I've always struggled with imposter syndrome before becoming a developer. Because I don't know if there's any artists in the chat, but as someone who has drawn for a really long time, imposter syndrome is a it's very apparent during the journey because you have a lot of people to compare yourself to. It's tough too because art is everywhere, literally everywhere, and it's not something you can really avoid. And it's really it's interesting because I think as an artist, you're your worst self-critic too, because no one can criticize your art better than yourself, and it was definitely a struggle to keep pushing myself forward as an artist. But so I think that's why I was when I joined or not joined, but when I started transitioning into being a developer, I still do struggle with imposter syndrome, but I'm more better equipped with it only because I'm so used to dealing with it as an artist. So I what I typically do, and I've learned this when I was drawing, is that I just focus on what I am doing. And I try to block out what other people are doing when I am working on something, right? And when I say blocking out other people, I don't mean like, oh, I am just completely ignoring what people are building. No, that's not what I mean. Like I see what other people are doing. I'm like, oh, that's really really cool what you built, or like, oh, that's really inspiring what you're doing. I want to take what you learned and I want to try to implement it myself, or I want to add my own spin to it. Like there are areas of inspirations you can find there, and it's the same thing with drawing too. Like I don't completely block out other people's drawings. I'm like, oh, that's a really cool piece of art you did. I'm going to take inspiration from that, and I'm going to try to add my own twist to it into my own creations. And it's like I think that's the key to it. It's like try your best to focus on what you're doing and remember that you're your own person, and what you do, what other people do shouldn't affect how you're doing as a developer or as a person in general. Like they're their own person, they're their own journey, and I'm sure like maybe they're also struggling with imposter syndrome. You have no idea what other people are thinking, right? We can't read minds. I mean, if we could, maybe this would be a completely different world, but we can't. So we're I feel like that the best way to do it is just to focus on what you're doing and just remember that at the end of the day, no matter what cool thing someone else builds, that will never affect what you build.
That's pretty great. You have also covered my next question that was about, like any advices on imposter syndrome. So here we have Sophia asking a question. What's your best and worst moment as someone working in tech?
My best, well, I think my best moment is when I got accepted at Upright. Let's be honest. I I definitely when I got that email, I physically melted down into my chair. Like melted as in like I would slide down. I remember this moment so vividly. It's like I slid down my chair and I literally my hand was on my forehead and I was like in disbelief. And I was just like staring at the email for the longest time and I'm just like, there's no way this is real. There's no way this is real. This cannot be real. But I keep going. I kept glancing back at the email, and I'm just like, "Oh my god, this is real! Holy crap, this is real!" And I didn't even scream. I didn't even shout. I was so in shock from what happened that I genuinely did not emote. I was just so overwhelmed in emotions. It was definitely that was definitely my best moment in tech. As for my worst moment in tech, I remember this moment very vividly too. It was I don't know I don't remember exactly when it happened, but for context, basically I was on this journey looking for a job, I think at least plus 1 year, right? And it wasn't easy at all. And I think what ended up happening was like all the emotions that started building up just started stockpiling on top of each other. The frustrations of just not being able to get anything, the burden of constantly having to do as much as humanly possible when I have all this free time in the world, and me kind of pushing myself on, like pushing myself and reminding myself that I could be doing better, and like that, like no one was putting this burden on me except for me. Like I was just imagining this burden like subconsciously onto me, and then it was also just like a combination of my parents just my worry of disappointing them, and because like as a child, sometimes like you want to make your parents proud, right? But at the same time, it's tricky because you're your own person and you're your own individual, and you're like, wait, I don't need to make them proud. I can just do my own thing, and it's a weird dichotomy in that sense. And so, like everything started piling on top of each other, all these emotions, all these thoughts, and all these like the stress was just piling on top of each other. And at the time, I didn't really have a good support system. I didn't know as many. I didn't have as many friends as I do now, and because of that, I think I just exploded in emotions, and not out of anger, but out of pure sadness. I just started bawling with my mom and my sister. It was such an intimate moment with my mom and my sister. Like I just started crying and sobbing because I saw myself spiraling down into this really bad place. It was to the point where I started sacrificing meals and I started sacrificing sleep because I wanted to see results. I was so desperate to see results. I started to convince myself I no longer needed meals because I could be working. Like my thought process was so bad at that point and so toxic that I was like, instead of eating, I could be working. Instead of sleeping, I could be working. Instead of spending quality time with my parents and with my family, I could be working. And it was such a bad place. And I realized that. And I just started crying hysterically because I knew I didn't want to be like that. I didn't want this journey to transform into something like that. I didn't want to self-destruct. I didn't want to become a person where I am basically not killing myself, but like putting myself in a self-destructive journey that it turns into something more dangerous, you know? And just getting all those emotions out, those raw emotions, really helped me kind of just take that big sigh, just kind of take that big breath and just be like, everything's gonna be okay because I have my family, because I'm alive, and because I have a house, I have food, I have clothing, I have this, I have that. And I remember that moment so vividly because I was in such a bad place. But because I was in such a bad place, I was able to recognize what I'm not willing to do. I was able to recognize the line I'm not willing to cross, and I will never cross ever again. And I still to this day keep those lines intact for myself because I know I will always have certain standards for myself and for my self-care going through my daily workload and doing the daily hunt or like grinding everything like grinding out code and all that jazz. It's like I will never put myself in a place like that.
That's so great that you recovered from that situation, and it's I'm so happy that you are here and you have found your path. And so here we got some chat that we need to catch up on. Uh, so r- okay, so why is everyone calling coffee chats a meeting to their family?
I don't know.
Okay, and Sophia shares her journey or like her story about I felt the same way when I was working with Pieces. I got the offer at night due to time difference, and I was screaming to her, "Oh, you work for Pieces? I didn't know.
Yeah,
I
I
thought I
mean,
thought you."
oh, sorry. Go ahead, Krishna.
No, no, I have completed. You say, please continue.
Yeah, I mean, like, same Sophia. Like, you would normally think, oh, I'm gonna pop up the heck off when I get that job offer, but it's usually pretty subtle because you're just like so overly shocked with emotions.
And Roxy shared some big hugs for you.
Thank you, Roxy.
Thank you for the virtual hugs to Richard. And Sophia says that so making parents feel proud doesn't go away with age. I always thought it's something that would go away with time. Yeah,
No,
it's not. It's
no.
it's like something you want to do or achieve that remains throughout your life.
Honestly, no. It might be a cultural thing, maybe because I
Mhm.
come like I see Roxy's comment about it. I also come from an immigrant family. Like maybe it's that part of it because I know they put into sacrifice to move away from their family. Like for context, my mom has not seen my has not seen her mom or dad for 18 years straight because of me and my sister. No other reason. And like that that can be a lot for a kid. And like growing up in that kind of situation, it's a lot of pressure, it's a lot of burden because like they don't talk about it at all, but like you pick it up, you know. It's something that you pick up as when you grow up and you're like you pick up on those things where like, oh my God, my mom has not talked to her parents for so long because of me, you know.
I feel you. I feel you. I'm so glad that everything got resolved with time, and then you were
Mhm.
able to make your parents proud. I'm sure you will make your parents even more proud in the future. That's pretty great. And hey there, Shreya.
Actually,
And Roxy says that she's from an immigrant family, and she doesn't know if that has anything to do with it. She had okay. Let's see. Hmm. Okay, so Sophia used to work for Pieces. She left in March. Oh, I didn't know. I discovered Pieces in July or August. I remember people had a trend of doing coffee chat with Rosie in like that week, and then I was pretty excited about what it was about. Like I was pretty excited to know what it was about, and then I opened it up. I saw that something Pieces. I just searched it up on the internet. I downloaded Pieces. I tried it out, and I could understand nothing at first. So I scheduled a coffee chat with with Rosie, and then she guided me through all those features like live context and all. And I was like, "Oh my god, this is so amazing!" And then that's how I know Pieces. That's great. You worked for them. And
yeah,
Roxy says that.
yeah. It's tough because on one hand, I know they're not doing it intentionally, right? Like it's not intentional guilt at all, but it's something you just pick up growing up in an immigrant family. Like, yeah, it's tough.
And Sophie says that she was in pieces when Rosie joined. She's awesome. Yep, she is. She's so awesome. Well, so let's come back to the topic.
Mm,
Like about your journey. Like all this is about your journey, but let's come to the technical side.
mm.
Uh, so like wait a second, I forgot the question.
Don't you love when that happens? You're like, yeah, I was gonna say something or I was gonna ask a question, but then I completely forgot. I'm just like, oh my God, why does my brain do that sometimes?
Yeah, so like my question was that where are like where did you like start? Like where was the starting point of you getting into technical writing? Like how do you get into technical writing from writing some code?
Oh, I mean, it was literally just a one-on-one with Shashi. He was like,
Hmm.
"You wanna? You should probably. I'm gonna pivot you over to technical writing." And since like we're not getting paid like with Diary of a Survivor, I'm like, "Yeah, why not? I'm not like you know." Worst case scenario, I don't like it, and then I move back into developer. Best case scenario, I fall in love with it, and I have something else I can get into. So, I mean, I did do some research, but I didn't do any like actual technical writing until a little later, where Shashi was like, "Oh, I'm just going to give you some tickets here and there for documentation." I'm like, "Sure, absolutely." So I did some organization with Storybook, which was a lot of fun. Personally, I found it fun, and then AppWrite was my very first actual introduction to technical documentation, I think. Oh, wait. I think, yeah, I think it was AppWrite was my first introduction to actual documentation because, well, technically we did have to write documentation for Gridiron Survivor. We did like this research thing where Shashi was like, "Hey, I want you guys to go off on your own, look up tools, stacks, libraries, and then I want you to present it to the group, kind of like talking about your research and all that jazz." So I guess that was my first introduction to documentation. And then blog wise, I think my first one was about that conference. It was either that conference or it was my journey one. I don't remember.
So like okay. So Sophia has a question for you and she asked
Mhm.
that why did you choose to focus on the front end?
Hmm. You know, that's a really good question, Sophia. I don't know. I kind of just turned out like that. I mean, I am interested in learning more about backend, but I don't know. I guess, like, first of all, the backend doesn't really have the factor of making things pretty, and I do like that aspect of front end where I'm able to physically see what's happening. I'm like, oh yeah, it looks pretty, stuff like that. But I guess I never really was like, oh my god, I really love backend. I want to get into it. I want to learn more about backend. It's kind of like oh, that's a nice to have kind of thing. I mean, I know like the basics of backend, but I don't really know it on a deeper level than I probably should. And I am interested in going on a more deeper level because right now I'm kind of set up my backend to where backend to a point where like it's mostly taken care of with app, right? But I'm like, well, I already know like how to set up CRUD with Express and Node. I'm like, maybe I can go a little more deeper with it, middleware and password hashing and all that jazz. But what? Maybe one day. We'll see. We'll see.
Well, so I see. So wait a second, I forgot the question the second time.
You should write these down now. Just be like, oh, I just thought of a
Yeah,
really good question. I'm gonna write this down so that way I don't forget.
I'm thinking the question, and then I'm listening to you talk about the previous answer, and then I forgot this question. That's my story.
Dude,
So
every time when I'm doing a stream or when I'm talking to people, sometimes my mind just starts to wander. Like I don't know why. My brain is just like, oh yeah, I had this conversation topic I wanted to talk about. I'm like, oh my god, now I have this new other topic I want to talk about, and they're not even related to each other. They're so vastly different.
well, so like in your journey, have like do you think Twitter or like connecting to other people may have helped you like land better opportunities or like get better at your field?
Yes and no. So I feel like Twitter is interesting because actually this is more of a social media aspect of it than just specifically to Twitter, because I do think that Twitter helped me vastly helped me find the friends and the community that I really needed. And because of Twitter, I was able to find like my support circle, you know. And I'm very grateful for Twitter and other social media platforms where I'm able to connect with those people. I'm able to be like, "Hey, how you doing?" Or like, "Hey, you know, do you have some time to talk?" You know, it's really, I'm super grateful that I have a platform where I'm able to do that. On the other side of it, though, there are aspects of Twitter and social media I feel like kind of distract me from doing my work sometimes, because I mean social media is in its essence is pretty addicting to a degree, and that this is why I will never ever get TikTok. Pigs will fly before I get TikTok. Because I already spend so much time responding to so many people on Twitter and Blue Sky, and it's a bit of a problem because I want to support all my friends. I want to be like, oh my goodness, I want to constantly be there for them, and I want to show that I'm there for them and be there for them. But on the other side of the coin, I'm like, I need to do my work. So I need to definitely find a good balance for it, and I think I have found a good balance for it. But like, there are times I definitely spend a little too much time on social media. I'm like, I probably shouldn't be spending this much time on Twitter, but I am.
It's a fun thing that I cannot even like get TikTok ever. Like I never had plans, neither do have plans to get something like that, and I cannot get something like TikTok because those are banned in India. So
Mhm.
it's like much better for me.
Yeah, dude, don't even bother getting TikTok. Okay, well, maybe that's a hot take from me, but I genuinely feel like from my side of the coin, I'm like, I feel like Twitter, Blue Sky, slash Mastodon, and LinkedIn is good enough. Like, I don't know if you need more.
Also, like how do you stay focused or maybe productive throughout your developer journey, or like is there something you know some special thing you follow or maybe try to apply in your daily schedule?
Yeah, and this, I do want to preface, this might not work for everyone, but I have a physical journal I use to write down what I plan on accomplishing for the day. And I break down those tasks into like smaller, you can't see it, but like it's like filled with like stuff that I want to work on for that day. And oh, I didn't know you were gonna do that. But like, yeah, I do it day by day. Like the start of the day or the day before, like the night before, I'm like, okay, this is what I want to accomplish for that day. Like I'm going to work on this component, I'm gonna work on a button, or I'm going to start working on my blog, or I'm going to start working on a Gridiron Survivor ticket, or like something like that. And then when I finish it, I cross it off on my list, like physically. And then at the end of the day, I'm able to look back at it. I'm like, oh, so this is what I accomplished. This is what I didn't accomplish. Let's see what I can change, iteration to improve upon that, So I'm able to know physically able to see what my limitations are as a person on a daily basis. And then it's nice to see like that progress sometimes. And then yeah, I mean that's what I typically do to be productive by day. However, when it comes to actual coding and putting my fingers on the keyboard, productive. Okay, so I used to. I used to. I don't do it anymore. I used to watch television shows while I code. I don't know how I did it. I genuinely have no idea. But for some odd reason. I don't know why. But I was able to concentrate way more on my code when I was watching a television show. while I coded. I swear, I actually watched Friends while I was. I don't know if that's like if that's a me thing. I don't know. It probably is a me thing. I don't think anyone else does this, but now what I end up doing is I'm trying to like pivot towards a work environment where I don't have any distractions, so I don't put on any music and I just code. I'm trying to see if that works. I'm trying to like introduce new things to see what works and what doesn't work. So I don't really have a key one consistent thing I do. I like to mix things up. I'm the type of person that doesn't like to do one thing like the same thing every single like for too long. I'm like, I kind of want to mix things up a little bit. You like try to add in a little here, a little here, and like see how it goes.
That's awesome, Richard. Like you watching television shows while coding had me.
I don't recommend it. I don't think it's a fruitful endeavor. I don't know how I did it honestly. I'm like looking back at it, I'm like I must have had some kind of different brain because I'm like, what on earth was I doing? Was I actually concentrating? I have no idea, but I got work done and I learned. So I'm like, I guess it worked? Question mark.
So, Richard, I think this episode of our podcast was so great. And before we move on to one final surprise thing of to before ending our podcast, do you have anything you'd like to share? Maybe some advice or something from your journey that you have learned.
Hmm. I would say just consistency. Oh, I mean, I kind of wrote a blog about it recently, so I guess that's kind of cheating. Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I can't think of anything else besides being consistent. Because I feel like it's it's tough to. I don't know how some people do it, but like I know there are people out there who code for 8 hours straight. I'm like, no, no. I will code for like an hour, maybe 30 minutes, and I'm like, okay, I need to take a break, and then I'll come back and do it again. So as long as you're doing it every day, or like at least to some degree consistent, consistently, it's all good.
That's awesome. And Roxy uses Chris's mixes to study. Okay, I'll try that out maybe. So finally, we have some surprise. You know,
Oh,
we have some surprise for you. So
surprise!
for this surprise, we're gonna be asking you. I'm gonna be asking you like 10 rapid questions about
Okay,
some super fun questions that that you have to answer. Okay.
okay.
So 3, 2, 1, start. Do you like to use tabs or spaces?
Tabs,
Dark mode or light mode?
dark,
Any favorite tech gadget?
tech gadget,
Yep. Like
like
some, you know, like some like a special keyboard, or maybe some mouse, maybe some mic, or maybe
I
some
don't really
headphone that.
have one. I don't really have one. Like I just buy whatever is the cheapest or like has good reviews. I don't really have a specific.
No, like
I
you,
really
no,
like
like
this gadget.
no, like whatever you buy, you have some favorite, right? Like you like your keyboard, you like your mouse,
Not
or
really.
maybe
I just
no.
like as long as it's cheap and it works and it's good
Oh,
reviews. That's all I care about right now. I'm a minimalist in that kind of degree. I don't know.
that's great. I don't know why I have this question right here. I thought of removing this, but I have it. I didn't remove this for some reason. Well, so tea or coffee?
Hot water. I don't. I wish there was a hot water option. If I have to choose, it has to be tea then. But hot water is always. This is actually hot water. So yeah.
And which OS are you using right at this moment?
Windows. I do want to try Webpack, but they're so expensive. So I'm like maybe one day.
GitHub or GitLab?
GitHub. I haven't tried GitHub yet. I have heard of it though.
Is there some cool project you have ever worked on?
There's too many. I can't pick one. You can't make me pick one. That's
Just
like me.
just name
That's making
any.
me. That's making me choose between dogs and cats. It's like it's a hard choice. I mean, I do like my magical cat cafe is pretty cool. I'm a bit biased there.
Well, so we have finished all of our rapid questions, but I'm going to add a question right here to make you feel pretty weird. Dogs or cats?
Okay, you gotta do this to me, man. Oh my god. I can't choose between the two. They are so cute. Okay, I'm sorry, but like, you can't make me choose between the two. Oh my god. Uh, if I have to choose one, I will choose cats, but only because I love cats, but I also love dogs. Oh my god.
It's like a mixed up a situation for you. Like you love both. You cannot choose one. You have to choose both at the same time.
If I could, I would choose both. I would be like, if you gave me a dog and a cat, be like, choose one. I'm like, I will take both. I will take both home. Thank you. They're so cute.
That's
I can't choose one.
that's so awesome. That's so awesome. Thank you, Richard, for like um coming here, sparing your valuable time and discussing about your journey here. And Roxy says that there can only be one.
Listen, Roxanne, listen. They are both equally cute, okay? You also have a cat, and I'm like, okay, I mean, listen. I would love to have both. You can have both. It doesn't have to be just one.
Okay, so thank you, Richard, for sharing your story with us. I think the people watching here live, or maybe those who are watching this recorded, may relate with your advice, or maybe the ups and downs you had along with the journey. And we have we had a lot of fun here and shared a bunch of knowledge that definitely maybe inspires me. And so, for everyone listening, I hope you found this as inspiring and as I did. And until next time, keep coding and stay curious. Goodbye, everyone.